Breaking news today on Sekulow, and this is not satire, it is not a joke. The Biden administration has created a dystopian Disinformation Board at the Department of Homeland Security. Welcome to Sekulow. No, it's not a joke. It's almost hard to believe, except for, remember, these are the Democrats who have weaponized every government agency they can to try and silence you. So you saw them weaponize early, a decade ago, the IRS. We've battled that. They've weaponized the FBI, so no one respects the FBI anymore. And now they're weaponizing Department of Homeland Security, which has already been a disaster. I mean, there have been calls by members of Congress to impeach the Secretary of Homeland Security for failing to do his job to protect our border and, of course, to protect American sovereignty. But you know what he's spending his time doing with his staff of political appointees? Coming up with, this is no joke, a Disinformation Governance Board. This is another weaponization of the federal government to come after average Americans speaking their mind. The idea... And the new head of this, she's already called you a fascist if you support President Trump. So she's already come out with her own insults for you, but she doesn't want to hear anything on the street that she might disagree with. We talk about that a lot on this show, that being a free speech absolutist means you will hear opinions and views that you don't like, that might make you uncomfortable, that might even make you mad. But that's part of living in America. That's what makes us different than even other democracies around the world, is that we actually have, or at least had, freedom of speech. You can be the lone actor with your sign on the corner. And, and that's a normal part of America. And it's up to you to convince more people to join your cause.
It is unbelievable. A Disinformation Governance Board to coordinate countering misinformation related to Homeland Security, focused specifically on irregular migration, in other words, illegal crossings, and Russia. So if you speak on your piece on any of those issues, and of course, it's not going to be limited to that. But, the Nazis had a ministry of propaganda and public, was it public engagement? Well, what was that name? It was a ministry of propaganda, and they also had another component to it. It was the same type of idea. Yeah, public enlightenment. So public enlightenment, and we've got, and said ours is called the Disinformation Governance Board. You talk about an attack on freedom of speech, folks. I mean, you do realize what's happening, right? The government is impaneling a group of government employees who will, without court order, without court oversight, will decide whether speech you're giving constitutes disinformation. Now, what are the penalties for that? I guess they can, list you on a Homeland Security listing.
They'll get you fired from your job is what they'll do. I mean, they'll get you fired.
Of course, that's that real economic consequences.
So that's how they can, a backdoor consequence is they expose you as some kind of, this radical extremist, and suddenly you've lost your job. You can't be associated with anymore. And the person running this, she tweets out, "The cat's out of the bag. Here's what I've been up to the past 2 months." I mean, they're proud of this. We're going to play her sound. They are proud of limiting speech. They don't want. This is the left. This was the liberals, the Democrats. I thought they love protesters and they love disruption. But you realize now it's up to us. We're the disruptors. We're the ones who actually say, "Give me all your speech. Give me Black Lives Matter. Give me everybody." And just let everybody talk. Now, if you start rioting, that's a different story. But that's not what this is about. This is about the actual speech.
This is a Disinformation Governance Board.
It's not about action. It's not about doing anything illegal.
It's called a Disinformation Governance Board that will determine whether your speech is disinformation and then subject to whatever draconian penalties they put in place.
The head of this new committee, the Disinformation Governance Board, Nina Jankowicz, she was on NPR. So she went on government-sponsored radio, of course, government speech, which, again, I think we could question why are we funding that in the United States of America when we have so many different media outlets to choose from. But again, this is where they go to promote their censorship of American people. I mean, this is targeted right at you folks. They are talking about the conservative talk radio listener. On this one. The person who's willing to take a different political opinion than might be popular in corporate America or in the mainstream media. But then we realize when we all take the opinion together that we make up a pretty good chunk of the United States of America, and that there's a lot of us questioning just the entire design of our government and especially these institutions, because they are weaponizing them, not against illegal immigrants, which is what the Department of Homeland Security was for, terrorists and border security. No, they're weaponizing it against you. It makes you think, why do we need the IRS, the Department of Justice, the FBI, and the Department of Homeland Security? They're not protecting us. They don't. It seems like every time there's some kind of attack at a board, they're playing catch up, even when they've encountered that person before. They've actually spoken to most of these people who commit these big crimes or terror attacks, and then they're not protecting the border, which is their entire job. But listen to her. They are not hiding from you. They are telling the world, I'm here to censor you.
You can't help but notice that many of the free speech absolutists are often online trolls themselves, and or they are wealthy white men who presumably have ample means to protect their personal safety. Yeah. They have personal assistants. They have security guards. They have, people who can provide, a zone of personal safety for them. But to the argument that it is just words, what do you say?
It's not just words. So if I were walking on the street and a crowd of hundreds of people were shouting the insults that we spoke about at me, police would intervene. Bystanders would intervene. It would not be acceptable. And yet it is happening to millions of women around the world, and worse, every day.
I can insult you. It's America. I can't, if I threaten you, that's different. But insulting, and what does that even mean? You remember what I just said before in the earlier segment. Hearing things you don't like to these snowflakes is insulting to them. Everything is about somehow this is protecting minorities. Somehow this is protecting women. But the truth is, when you start limiting speech, you're hurting the minority view the most. The minority view is the view that gets shut out eventually. And it's only the view of the government. So I get this idea that we don't want to insult people anymore. Come on, this is the United States of America. We're known for that.
Free speech is supposed to be robust. It can be aggressive. It can't be threatening, right? But here's what you have. You have the United States government setting up a disinformation board to review speech of American citizens. And the person that's heading it up, Nina Jankowicz, says, I shudder to think about if free speech absolutists were taking over more platforms. Shudder to think about free speech absolutists? You mean people that believe that free speech should be robustly protected like our founding father, the whole founding generation? But here's what's so concerning. I want you to think about this, everyone. A government agency, the Department of Homeland Security, sets up a Disinformation Governance Board. Who do you think they're targeting? You know who they're targeting. You, me, broadcasts like this. You think Facebook is censorship? Just wait till the government's involved now in disinformation review.
Yeah, they don't like what you say. I mean, so they're questioning Joe Biden, questioning their policies, questioning the way their politics is now going to become something that is, you are now anti-American. You're an enemy of the state if you happen to question the state. So I think our job now is to question everything as much as possible and to realize that these so-called leaders, okay, they're not to be respected and trusted. They're telling you what they want to do. So they're not hiding back. You would think this is something that, like, they planned this actually to come out. They had a Democrat ask the question in the committee hearing so that they could get ahead of this news story. And then she comes out, the cat's out of the bag. I mean, her former job, her career is, she was a disinformation fellow at the Wilson Center. And she advised the Ukrainian Foreign Ministry, which again, was she the one that advised the Ukrainian Foreign Ministry to go forward with a NATO application that led to a war? I mean, this idea too, you put all these things together. It's like everyone is not, why are all of these people coming from the same world?
And
ask
this is
yourself that question.
Government. Right.
They promote this idea, and her idea that I don't want to walk down the street and see things I don't like or hear things I don't like. that don't live in America. Except for, and that used to be the kind of majority of us from all political walks, far left, far right, and in between, would say, no, this is a country where you could be insulted, and you might not like what you see, and you might not like what you hear, and you might have to explain it to your kids when you walk by, but that's a part of liberty. It's part of freedom. And they are confusing criminal activity with the ability to just speak freely. The idea that you can't just have a discussion now without worrying that it's going to be criminalized. And I think what they're going to do is this is going to target people for employers to feel pressure to remove these people from their jobs, and that's how it's also just a way to silence all of us.
It's going to be shaming. Here's what Josh Hawley, senator, said in a letter to the Homeland Security Secretary Mayorkas. I write with deep concern about the Department of Homeland Security's decision to create a new Disinformation Governance Board. I confess at first I thought this announcement was satire. Surely no American administration would ever use the power of government to sit in judgment on the First Amendment speech of its own citizens. Sadly, I was mistaken. Rather than protecting our border or the American homeland, you've chosen to make policing American speech your priority. This new board is almost certainly to be unconstitutional and should be dissolved immediately. We think it is unconstitutional. We're looking at, by the way, at the American Center for Law and Justice, we're looking at legal challenges already. I'm going to find out through a FOIA who started all this.
Well, it comes 2 days after Elon Musk buys Twitter and Truth Social launches
yes, we need
fully.
to announce that.
And so we're on Truth Social now, as well, like we're on other social media places. So you just look up Sekulow. You can find all of us, or ACLJ, and we're there.
At Jordan Sekulow, at Jay Sekulow, at Logan Sekulow, and at ACLJ.
Yeah, so we're all there, and so that platform opens up to everybody. So it's got millions of people on it now. Twitter is totally changed, and overnight, Elon Musk is changing the culture there. Though we said give him some time because he's got a lot of bad actors inside. But this idea, that's who they're targeting. And when they say it's white men with security guards, this is not who's on Truth Social. On Truth Social and other places, it's everyday folks. It's not Hollywood celebrities. They've got all of that protection. She works for the government. She gets all that security and protection. It's about how to silence you. It's not about the top speakers. It's not about the people who, again, at the top. It's not. It's that they want to go after you for even speaking your mind. And the idea, again, they make it a racial issue. They make it a sexist issue. And they make it about minorities. Their job at the Department of Homeland Security is supposed to be securing our border, killing and arresting terrorists. What happened? What happened to our government? Why are we funding it? The idea is, let's say Republicans do take charge. They've already threatened to impeach him. Why not just shut it down at this point? What's the point? You could put Border Patrol back with DOJ or some other agency, because they are obviously have gotten so politicized. This is the thing with the FBI. They never stop terrorist attacks. They never stop crime. Crime is up, unbelievable amount. The amount of police officers killed up 59% in 1 year. But what's the FBI focused their time on? Not on Hunter Biden's business dealings. No. They're focusing their time on you.
And what you're going to say.
On a social media platform.
Yeah, because now they're concerned that an Elon Musk is going to open up the social media platform to free speech without viewpoint discrimination. This is their concern. Let's go ahead and take a call before the break.
We go to Mary Ellen, Illinois on line 2. Hey, Mary Ellen.
Hey, go ahead. You're on the air.
Yes. Oh, I thank you so much for issue here that you're raising, because I agree. First of all, I always thought political speech is protected speech. Okay.
It is.
And this misinformation, it's not consistent with their defined role or authority given them, under the executive branch, correct?
Oh, exactly. And so the challenge to this formation of this governance, Disinformation Review Board, is going to be multifold. I think a Disinformation Governance Review Board probably runs afoul, depending on the application of how they use it, but certainly you would think runs afoul of the First Amendment's free speech clauses. Maybe it's freedom of association clauses as well. First thing to do is find out how this all started. That process is already underway because your American Center for Law and Justice is already preparing the documents to find out what this is all about.
Welcome back to Sekulow. We're taking more of your phone calls to 1-800-684-3110. That's 1-800-684-3110. Let's go to Linda in Pennsylvania online too. Hey, Linda.
Thank you for taking my call.
Yep.
Other than voting and praying, what accountability does the White House have to the American people that put him in office?
Well, look, I mean, the elections have consequences. Now, the accountability is going to come. I'm holding in my hand right now a first draft, so it's not final by any stretch of the imagination, of a Freedom of Information Act letter that we're going to send off to the United States Department of Homeland Security to get information about this misinformation and disinformation governance board that's been already set up. So that's happening. So that's number one. I want you to understand that. That's in process. So that supporting groups like the ACLJ and our government affairs office, for instance, in Washington, can get results. When we do get results in these cases, it takes time, but you have to do it. So that's one thing you do.
Yeah, there's a constant political process. You have midterm elections going up all the time. And what I think that the big message to all of us right now is you better get out and vote. Don't sit on your hands and say, I don't think my vote will be counted, because they'd love that. They'd love for you to sit at home and not actually vote. That makes it easier for them, a lot easier. So, and get your friends, understand you're steps away from giving up a lot in our country. I mean, if you give up this kind of power, I already think we gave up too much in the 60s and 70s. We started funding it, news services for the government. And again, the idea that the way they've gone after pro-life speech is the way now they're just going after all speech, the picking and choosing. So you got to show up. You have to organize. You have to be unified, not always in every political view you have. I think that's what makes our movement unique, is that you don't have to agree on everything. But there are some big ticket items that we want to make sure we're electing people for. And one of the main, it's kind of crazy that we're having to say it, but the idea that we're going to protect freedom of speech means you have to vote Republican, because look at what the Democrats are doing. They might have a couple who come out against this, but it'll be a couple.
Yeah.
The mainstream of the Democrat Party agrees with this right now.
Right.
Agrees with the idea of of a
oversight board
of everybody's speech. That you can't be the person on the corner anymore in the United States of America.
No, or use the internet or get your views out, or the new public square. Wes Smith is a retired colonel from the United States Army, and Colonel Smith, I got a note from a friend of mine whose father served in World War II, was wounded, received decorations and acknowledgments about his injuries in war. And you put on the uniform of the United States. You've served all over the world. How does this make you feel as a military man?
These are the things that we raise our right hand. We take an oath to defend the Constitution. This is an attack on the First Amendment of the Constitution. What they fail to realize, Jay, is that misinformation speech is protected speech, just like hate speech.
Oh, sure.
And that is lost on them. But what bothered me about Mayorkas' testimony yesterday in Congress was that the excuse he used for establishing this board to monitor what we say and write is national security. That's what he said.
Yep.
He made the statement that disinformation creates a landscape of vulnerability for state actors to use to the detriment of the United States. Our adversaries, they use the words of the progressives to the detriment of the United States. They actually have a PR coup with things that people on the left, including some of our U.S. leaders, say.
Yep.
Our adversaries pick up on that, and they actually quote them. They have quoted Mayorkas.
One of the folks on Truth Social, Mr. Plain Truth is what he goes by, said this: when can we expect the @ACLJ and @Sekulow file a suit against DHS for the formation of the Disinformation Governance Board? Isn't this a direct violation of the First Amendment? Yes, it is a direct violation of the First Amendment. And I am reviewing, as soon as we get off of radio, the first draft of our Freedom of Information Act demand, which I'm sure will be objected to, and into federal court will end up.
Yeah,
so, yes.
And I think we have to think, too. I mean, this just happened. But the idea is that if it silences speech at all, it's already unconstitutional. So whether you could challenge it outright, even outside of the FOIA process, because of its immediate, because they've announced it, they've told us all who's a part of it. So I think that, again, they're not doing this in secret, which, again, but I always speak it this way. Remember who they're putting on the court, people who don't think you have a fundamental right. Now, right now, that's not the majority of the Supreme Court's view. But I think one of the commenters said, too, could you imagine if they do vote Roe versus Wade?
They're going to go crazy.
This is all really. This is not about Elon Musk. It's about those kind of moves.
Yes.
But who will be violent in the street? Who will actually be the ones committing crimes? It's not speakers. It will be them. Who burned your cities and towns down? Them. The far left. That's who burned the cities and towns down.
Yep.
And so that to me. Get ready. This is a full-on assault on all of us.
And those decisions come out in about 8 weeks. All right, let's take another phone call. Jenny from Florida.
Hey, Jenny.
Hi. Thanks for taking my call, and thank you for all you do.
Thanks.
I'm wondering where Mayorkas gets the authority to form a board like this and hire people and manage to keep it a secret for 2 months.
Well, I mean, they're cloaking it, and it's part of security, like Wes was talking about. They're saying it's a national security issue. Now, I think it's challengeable now that they've come public with what they're calling it and what its force is. But when you create these agencies, they have policy power outside of the political process. Now, Congress can decide to fund them or not. They can also, you can decide.
So changing the Congress could have a big impact on this.
Yes,
but they can also find money. You don't know with DHS. They can find money. We're going to probably have to do a direct constitutional attack on this setup of this disinformation campaign.
As you and I were talking earlier, when Mayorkas uses national security as the excuse for this, it reminds us of Nazi Germany.
Oh, yeah.
Joseph Goebbels was appointed the head of the Ministry of Propaganda and Public Enlightenment, and they passed a law called the Editor's Law. Clause 14 of that law that Joseph Goebbels, officiated over, ordered editors to admit anything, quote unquote, calculated to weaken the strength of the Third Reich at home or abroad. He justified their censorship on national security as well. It's almost the same thing that Mayorkas said yesterday.
Old playbook.
Yeah, it's the idea you can't be a patriot and anti-government at the same time. When in fact, being a patriot and questioning the government go hand in hand together.
Well, that's how we became a government. That's how we became a country.
The idea that you can't criticize the government anymore is the whole. It's an entire shift in what we're all about, and I think what it's going to do is unleash a movement they've never even seen. They think Donald Trump was a movement. You take moves like this, and you're going to bring more people. Because then you bring in the Elon Musk world. That's not necessarily the Donald Trump world. Though they might see eye to eye on some things. You start bringing a mass amount of people, they're going to say, we're going to take away your free speech rights. You don't have to get into the nitty gritty of political campaigns and their the party system even to create a movement that might be their worst nightmare. You already are. They've called you deplorable. You're fascist, Nazis, theocrats. I mean, the list goes on and on with the terms they use. And again,
stand with us.
Insult all you want. But yeah, I think you have to be ready for a major battle here, a major cultural battle. And support our work at ACLJ.org. We're ready for it. We're prepared, and we're right on. We're standing with you. We've been standing up for the marginalized voices in America since our founding. But we don't let the government pick and choose who the marginalized are.
Nope. Paul and Rumble ask, are the ACLJ donations tax deductible? They are. ACLJ.org.